Welcome to Combat Zone 360, where we discuss everything military. Today on our show, we have a special guest, the Coffee Wilson post with the American Legion over on Fort Hamilton. With me today from that post is historian Tom Trombone and the post commander Juan Diaz. Thank you for joining me today, gentlemen.
Thank you for having us.
You're welcome.
Yes. So what I do with the beginning of my show, I know you both are veterans, and I like to find out how you guys grew up, where you guys came from, and what you've done throughout your childhood. That way, a lot of the viewers that are watching this show can relate with the guests. So if you can start off one, that would be great.
Surely. Well, I was raised in Brooklyn, product of the parochial school, St. Agatha's in Brooklyn and so forth. And I was actually always fascinated with the military, watching John Wayne, World War II movies, and so forth. But unfortunately, other career goals set in, and I focused on family. And it wasn't until I was in my 30s that I was at basically a healthcare event in downtown Brooklyn, where not only did they have healthcare, but they had other services there. And the National Guard happened to have a recruiting station. And when I got to see this nice Humvee, and on the poster it had this National Guardman rappelling from a helicopter. I said, wow, that's cool. I wish I was young enough to do that. And that's exactly what I said to a recruiter. And he's like, well, you seem young enough. I'm like, nah, I'm 34. And he's like, guess what? The cutoff was 35. And, and then he's like, you know, it's still not too late. And at the time I said, you know what? We'll talk maybe. So I took his business card, and I just decided at that moment that, hey, maybe I should give it a call, and I did. And now I've gone on 19 years.
Wow.
And still actively in the military, involved as I was a National Guard reservist. I'm still a reservist now. I'm on active duty actually, but it's been an interesting adventure. You know, I actually joined in '99, became a forward observer for the National Guard. Was intrigued about the National Guard because of what they do for the state. Okay. You know, disasters and so forth, and never thought about war, you know. And when I had came back from initial training, after boot camp, you go through initial training, in 2001, of course, I had 9/11. My unit, National Guard unit, the 1st of the 258 Field Artillery from Jamaica, Queens, immediately got activated after the president was on TV.
Wow.
And so I was a first responder. My unit was, along with the Fighting 69, the 101st on Manor Road here in Staten Island, Fighting 69 being in Manhattan, and the Jamaica Queen Armory 258 USH, we responded to the World Trade Center within about 2.5 hours.
Oh, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, and it's been deployed to Iraq. And honored to have been deployed to Iraq. And then later on, got a commission as an officer, and I'm still in to this day.
Now, with you growing up here in Brooklyn, did you play any sports or join any clubs while you were in high school coming up in your childhood?
Sure. I mean, being Dominican, the first thing that my dad ever gave me was a glove and a bat and a ball. So, I played Little League for a little bit. Later on, I played softball and so forth, and was in martial arts as well. So I was very engaged, young child from Brooklyn. But yeah.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
And what about you, Tom?
Well, I was born and bred in Brooklyn. Bensonhurst is where I was born. I live in Dyker Heights today.
Okay.
Which is only about a mile from where I was born. Really, I was born in a house, not a hospital.
Wow.
And the house is still there, and my daughter lives in that house. It was my mother and father's house. So, yes, born in I keep joking that I was born on the kitchen table. But, no, I was born in the house. No hospital back then. And normal growing up as a young fellow, I went to public schools. I went to high school, I went to college, and during college, 1948, the Berlin Air Crisis started. I don't know if many people know about the Berlin Air Crisis.
This is all
where the
new to me.
Russians. Berlin was in the Russian zone after the Second World War, and they cut off all transportation into Berlin.
Wow.
Berlin was split up into 4 areas:
Okay.
Britain, France, U.S., and Russia. And since it was 110 miles in from the border of Germany to the France, so it's 110 miles in Western Germany. It was in Eastern Germany.
Oh, wow.
So when they closed everything off, they left one air corridor open. And that's where all the supplies were going into Berlin. And I'm in school, I was in college, and I said, you know what? I'm going to get drafted. I might as well enlist to get what I want, which I did. That was 1948. Well, luckily the war another war didn't repeat itself in 1948. But I'm in the Army now, and comes 1950, a war does start, a Korean War. Wow. So I'm extended. Since I enlisted, I couldn't get discharged, had to stay in. And I served during the Korean War. I served in an armored division, armored infantry division. And what we did was train every single day. Not throughout my whole 3 years. Since I went to school, I was in communications. So I really got away with a lot of training because of communications. My due date for discharge was in 1951, which I did to get discharged. Wow. And I go home, and I'm home for a couple of weeks, and I even had thoughts of going back in. I meet my future wife 2 weeks after I'm discharged. And naturally through her, I got a job. My intention really was to go back to school. When I left the Army, I'm not going to say they pleaded with me to stay, but since they needed soldiers, and I just wanted to get back to school, back to college, which I did. But the point is, when I was thinking of going back, when I met my future wife, that ended my thoughts of going back into the service.
Wow.
So I worked at private industries for my career and working. I worked for Colgate-Palmolive soap company for 38 years. And joining the Legion was a big factor in my life. And was going to say today, the Legion really kept me going with the military. I didn't have any reserve time to do because I served 36 consecutive months in the military.
Okay.
If you served 36 months continuous, you had no reserve time at all.
No obligation.
No
afterwards.
obligation to stay in the military.
It's different now. It's completely different now.
8 years, right?
Yeah, because right now it's an 8-year obligation. You can serve 3 years, 36 months, but then you're on the inactive ready reserve for 5 more years.
Honestly, I was on the inactive for 10 years.
Oh, wow.
Inactive. What I meant by reserve duty, I didn't have to go once a month to reserve.
Okay.
No. I was on inactive for 10 years.
Oh, wow.
10 years inactive duty.
So that was after you got out after the 36 months?
After the 36 months. Inactive. If you went on reserve duty, you got a different discharge. You didn't get a discharge if you only stayed 2 years or 1.5 years. Back when I enlisted, there were crazy times to enlist. You could enlist for 18 months. You could enlist for 2 years, 3 or 6 years.
Oh, wow.
If you did the 3 years, there was no active reserve time.
Gotcha.
You went into the inactive reserve. If you did less, 18 months or 2 years, then you went into the Army Reserve. And your discharge was different. One discharge said, Army of the United States. And when you were in the reserves, you didn't get that until you completed your obligation.
Okay.
Another discharge said the United States Army. And for the life of me, I don't remember what mine said. But it was from the 3 years, no reserve time except the inactive reserve.
Okay.
So that was 10 years of that. You didn't have any obligation at all.
Wow. Now, I know coming up when you were young, I know New York City is huge on stickball, baseball, softball for female. I mean, it's all about a ball with a stick and a glove. Did you play any baseball back then when you were coming up living here in Brooklyn?
Yes, we had a social club, let's put it like that.
Okay.
A team. We had our jackets and all that, naturally. And we used to, I'm going to use the word challenge, other teams in the area. This is in Brooklyn.
Okay.
Right? So you would play basketball, softball. I never played baseball.
Okay.
And football, believe it or not.
Oh, wow.
And funny stories, I played one, I'm talking about full tackle football. I played one game of full tackle football, and that was it. That was it. No more full tackle football.
Yeah.
But the team still played. Played softball. When I was in college, we played intramural, not intramural softball, which I enjoyed. And that's basically what I did in sports. I like sports. It keeps you going. If you're talking about the local public park, every day during the summer, mostly basketball.
Wow.
Yeah, which was very interesting.
Wow.
But that's my athletic ability. No amateur pro or anything like that. Just that I enjoyed it.
Nice.
And as you get older, other things become more
important.
not urgent, but more appropriate to what you're doing with your family.
Yeah.
So I don't do any sports today.
I'm sure you'd be the MVP.
Yeah, no, I'd be the MVP, all right.
Now, Juan, I know you didn't join until you were 34.
Correct.
I know you looked at it. What was that deciding factor that actually pushed you across that finish line to make that decision?
Well, I married pretty young. That's one of the reasons that I joined the Army later on. At the time, I was going through some family changes, but it was always this hunger to be in the military, always. And it's basically it stems back from my family roots. My family roots from the islands. Basically, my great grandfather on my mother's side was a general who was instrumental in the Dominican Revolution. So I've heard all these stories about my grandfather and so forth, and being a captain of a battery and so forth. So and it was fascinating. I would hear my grandfather tell me about his great-great-grandfather. So it was always this burning desire. And, that opportunity on Eastern Parkway where they had this fair just opened up those doors for me to take the next step. And I was very fit. People say, well, 34 going to boot camp with these young 18 and 25-year-old. And the difference was that I was pretty good shape. When I was in high school, I was in gymnastics, I was into powerlifting, and so I kept in pretty decent shape. So when I went in at 34, it wasn't difficult. I thought it would be, but it wasn't. I think it was more mentally stressful.
Yeah.
When you have a drill sergeant who's about your age.
Yeah, or younger.
Or younger, screaming at you. And at the time, prior to myself being in the military, I was a clinical director.
Okay.
For a clinic for a special needs population in Brooklyn. And so I was used to delegating and telling people what to do. Now I'm being told what to do. So that experience was overwhelming, But it was an experience that I have no regrets. I have no regrets.
So when he told you your window was still open, you told him you'd think about it, but I think in your head you knew you were going to go with it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I push it. Once something's in my mind, I go full force, and that's what I did.
So you did field artillery.
Correct.
Coming in.
Forward
you were armor.
Infantry.
Infantry. Okay, so you were straight leg infantry?
Armor infantry
or was
it's
that on
only
the tanks?
that you ride in a half track. Back then it was called half tracks.
Gotcha, okay.
But you still got out and walked, of course.
Yeah,
that was the only difference.
So you were armor infantry and I was light infantry. So this table is just full of some combat arms guys. From different eras. That's what I'm talking about.
That's right.
So when you were sitting there and you made that decision to make that leap because you figured you were going to get drafted. Yes. The World War was over by then, right?
Yes.
And it was ending. what made you think you would have gotten drafted? Was Korea actually kicking off at that time, or what happened?
There was no indication of any other war.
Okay.
And I wasn't really looking into newspapers and headlines like that until later on. I just was thinking of what's going to happen if I do get drafted.
Yeah.
And I figured if you enlist, you have a choice of what school you want to go to. And I took that opportunity. I figured, let me do it now before they draft me and go into the infantry.
Yeah.
So
he ends up going infantry anyways.
That's right, I did. But like I said, communications got me out of a lot of work.
Yeah.
And if we have time, I'll tell you, I was in the headquarters company, which is with the battalion commander.
Yeah.
So the battalion commander needs his radios, he needs his communications. Yeah. So I got away with a lot of other duties that I was supposed to do because of the battalion commander.
Oh, yeah.
So it paid off in that respect, believe me.
So you were a teacher's pet.
No, there were a few of us.
Yeah, no, that's good.
To keep the colonel happy, lieutenant colonel.
You got to take care of them because they're so overwhelmed. I know when I drove the Humvee for a company commander, we were always out in the field, and the guy would never eat. Yes. Because he was always busy, and towards the end of the field problem, he'd be getting sick.
Right.
So when I became his driver, I had people tell me this is what's happening. So I would make sure he ate every morning. I felt like a butler,
right.
But the thing is, he's the commander. You have to keep him going, and really your only job is to take care of him.
Right. And in respect to the commander, that must have been an awesome commander, because a true commander basically worries about the soldiers getting fed before he gets fed.
Exactly.
Right.
And I would have to basically bring him food, sit it down in front of him, and tell him, "Sir, eat." No, I'm good. No, sir. Trust me. You need to eat.
Exactly.
Because he would drink nothing but water the whole field problem.
Wow.
Yeah, and he would end up getting sick towards the end because he's overhydrated.
Definitely. Wow.
So I know you guys are a part of one of the fastest building American Legion posts here in New York.
Yes,
Could you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, I'm going to turn it over to Tom. Tom, talk about the history of the Post 688 Coffee Wilson. You have the history, and then I'll kick in to present life.
Nice.
Well, I'll go back to when my post, it's two posts that combined, Coffee and Wilson. Coffee was a soldier in the Second World War, William E. Coffee, who was killed in 1945. A.E. Wilson is a soldier who was in the First World War.
Okay.
And he was killed, actually they were killed in the same month, years apart.
Oh, my God.
But there were two separate posts, and around 1981 or 2, I forget the year, I was in the Navy. I joined the American Legion at the end of 1982. They decided to merge into one post, and they became the Coffee Wilson post. And that was, I think, 1982. I'm not sure, 82 or 83. And we had, at one time, over the years, we had up to 185 members. In a small neighborhood post was a lot of members. And over the years, post started dwindling through age and things like that. Not AIDS, age. People got older, and they, they might have sounded like AIDS. Age. I'm talking about age. People didn't come to the meetings, and we didn't have a place of our own. We were renting out a room, and I guess around 2002 or something like that, we took a vote, and I was in command. I was commander during the 1990s. Took a vote, and it was, let's hand in the charter. Let's forget about the post. We're just wasting money. We're throwing it away. We'd open for one day a month.
Wow.
And here we're paying rent. So they voted, and they're going to close the post. And they're going to throw everything away. And I said to myself, we do that, that's the end of this Legion post. It's the end of Coffee Wilson. It's also the end of the members.
Yeah.
Because most of them are not going to go to another post because we're at the age where they didn't really care. So I took the responsibility of having the post in the books, The term is a paper post, meaning we didn't do anything.
Okay.
We had the charter, we had members, and the members were active in the American Legion, nothing else. So my duties really was taking care of the membership, get the cards, make out the cards, get their money every year for the dues, mail it to department. Department is the state. So when we talk about department, we meaning New York State.
Okay.
And I did that for about 12, 15 years or so until, and I saved everything. That's the point. When they were going to throw everything out, I saved as much of we had in the post, flags, documents, and I kept it in my house. 2 years ago, 2017, I know Juan now, and we're talking, and I said to Juan, well, I'm going to get rid of the post. I'm going to head into the charter. He started yelling, oh, no, you can't do that. Give it to me. And I was happy to do it.
Yeah. In
2017, the year came up, the year of the post annual year, and I changed. I called up the department. I said, we're going to have new offices. Department says, fine. American Legion is great. They want members. Long as they have a place to write to, give their information to, they're happy.
Nice.
So at that point, Juan became the commander, 2017, and he's going to tell you what we're up to today.
Right.
Sounds good.
And that's the way we really started.
Right.
Nice.
Well, one of the uniqueness about this post, which Tom was humble enough not to say, is the post under the Wilson Charter is 100 years old.
Oh, wow.
This year will be 100 years old. The Coffee Wilson was a charter that was brought on later after World War II. So this post does mean a lot. And it so happened that when Tom had said, hey, I'm turning in my post, I just had come out of a meeting from my post here in one of the posts in Staten Island. And the difference was at that post, I wasn't content. And I've been in 3 other posts. I was in a post in Queens, and I was 2 posts in Staten Island. And I wasn't feeling that the posts were doing enough based on the mission of the American Legion. So at that point, I said, well, I should put my money in my mouth and say, hey, if I'm not happy, why don't I make the changes? And Tom afforded me the opportunity to assist in maintaining his post and making it grow. So on January 2017, I invited some veterans to come in, prospective veterans that to this day, they're very involved. And we started off with 5. Now we're up to 80 plus.
Wow.
In 2 years, and we've done so much. But the reason that we're successful is that we actually identify future goals of the post, where it's going, what it's going to do, not only this year but in the next 5 years. And we've accomplished a lot of our missions. Well, being an American Legion post, we have to promote patriotism in the community. And one of the things that we noticed that we had a square on
79th Street in 7th Avenue.
79th and 7th. We had a square named after our post. It's called the Coffee Square. And Tom had said, yeah, we got our own square. So I go to the square, and it's missing a flagpole. And he's like, I don't know what happened to the flagpole. We don't know how long it's been gone, but the city's supposed to be managing that area.
Yeah.
So we took it upon ourselves to make that one of our goals. Let's erect another 25, 30-foot flagpole, and basically respect our colors. And that's what it is. It's also a monument for wounded, fallen soldiers. We have a monument there. And that was accomplished. It took us a year and a half, but we did. We accomplished that. The city came through. They purchased the flagpole. Another mission we had, which is a mission of the post, is to be mentors to youth. So we adopted the Fort Hamilton JROTC high school, and we sponsored 2 cadets to go to leadership camp.
Nice.
So those are worthy activities that we do. We participated in numerous parades, the Kings County Memorial Day Parade, one of the oldest parades in the nation. We also just finished participating in the Veterans Day, the National Veterans Day
Yes.
Parade. We also did our gala, our first gala, which was very successful. And any fundraising that we do actually goes back to the community. And it goes back to the veterans that participate in our group. So, so we're very involved. And it's not just a post where we come in, we have a little discussion. We basically come in and have every member interact. Mm-hmm. It's an opportunity for members to, if they have concerns, if they need VA help and so forth, they can share among each other basically their needs or basically networking. They can do that. So, it's the good thing about this post is we have veterans as far as Korean War, Vietnam era, Gulf War, and the current war. So it's a very diverse group. We also have the largest population of women. We have veterans. We have 9 women veterans that are in our post. We also have, which I believe is in Kings County, the veteran members that are active duty members. We have about 14 active duty members that are still serving.
I don't know of any other post that has active duty members.
Yes.
I really don't.
Yes.
Yeah, because a lot of them don't, look at being at a post. They look at their what's at hand now, which is their career,
Right. Exactly.
and they think it's something that they would do after they get out.
Correct.
True.
And that's been our success. We've been recruiting. I mean, being at Fort Hamilton Army Garrison is the ideal location. Mm-hmm. You recruit right there. When those individuals are walking around the base or at the actual old officers club, community club, we can recruit them, and they jump in. And we don't hold people by their hands. We tell them, come in and spend some time. If you like it, join us. If not, hey, you were welcome anyway.
Now, on that note, how could they get a hold of you guys if they did want to come visit the post or wanted to join the American Legion?
We do
post?
have the Coffee Wilson website. So if you Google Coffee Wilson website, it will come right up. And that's one way. We're also on Facebook. We have a Facebook page as well. Mm-hmm.
And if they're coming on post, I know because it's at Fort Hamilton, to visit, what would they have to go through to get on that military installation?
Well, on the actual webpage, you can register. And they'll ask questions, your contact information. And we periodically go through it. And if we see someone shows interest, we'll contact them. And then we will put them on on our list to come in through security at that point. And we'll greet them.
It's just like a guest coming on if they don't have a military ID.
Correct.
Okay, perfect. So that makes it kind of easy for them. Mm-hmm. Now, I know really quick, you guys don't just do a lot within the Brooklyn community. You guys branch out.
Yes.
I know you guys just done an amazing project here in Staten Island. Am I right?
For which one?
For a wounded veteran?
We do. We work with other organizations.
Okay.
We supported the Siller Foundation.
You guys basically did a house for a veteran?
Right, that was actually in Long Island.
Oh, Long Island.
Long
Okay.
Island. We actually...
started the whole...
Yeah, we actually supported them by providing the manpower to lay out sod in this enormous house in Long Island. And it was 100 degrees, actually. It was 100 plus degrees. And you'll see if there's any pictures, but if the soldiers that I invited and the Legionnaires, they were all Legionnaires. They were all part of our post. Some were with their Army uniform, or some of them were just as civilians. But we had like a nice 20-plus turnout to lay out that sod that day.
No, I saw some pictures, and it was amazing. But I would definitely love to ask you guys to come back in the future, because I know there's still a lot that we haven't even touched base with.
We'll be honored to.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for tuning in. And until next time, make sure you thank a veteran.